This presents a perfect opportunity. Ensure all data streams are recorded. Activate zombie takeout now.
What's up? Welcome to episode 230 of Zombie Takeout,
Zombie takeout.
the B-movie and cult movie podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, just want to thank Mother's Milk, or more specifically, whoever runs their Twitter account. They mentioned us recently in reference to the fact that we'll be reviewing the movie after the Resident Evil series. And they asked their Twitter followers to subscribe to us on iTunes and gave a link to our iTunes page. So,
Sweet.
yeah, just wanted to say thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much.
And some news. This is from Dread Central. Fitting title for this bit of news, or source, I should say. Exclusive. Eduardo Sanchez talks Blair Witch 3.
Oh,
Coming
Jesus
sooner rather than
Christ.
later. While talking about his new film Exists in a phone interview with Dread Central, director Eduardo Sanchez, best known for the Blair Witch Project, was asked, "Where is Blair Witch 3?" To which he replied, "We've been talking to Lionsgate, and there's been a little bit of movement, but nothing is concrete. The film seems inevitable to me, but really it's just a matter of it being the right time. I'm thinking it's going to happen sooner rather than later at this point, but I always say that. There's always rumblings and certain ideas being pushed around and such. While I don't have anything firm to talk about now, it wouldn't surprise me if something happened within the next year or two."
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now official. Any movie can now become a franchise.
Incidentally, Sanchez did not direct the second one. As far as I know, he had nothing to do with the second one. He's only credited with writing characters, and I think it's just because they took the Blair Witch and maybe some other characters that he'd created.
I don't even remember a second one.
It was called Book of Shadows. It did not do well.
Right. Why do we need a third one?
And just to put a timetable on it, the original Blair Witch Project was released in '99. The
Yes.
sequel that he had nothing to do with in 2000. So it'll be almost 20 years, and we're getting 3.
Someone needs a payday is what it comes down to.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's absolutely zero demand for this movie. Really. I mean, there's so many people that have gone back to be like, yeah, that first one did suck. Because it did.
Yeah, I saw it once, and it was I wouldn't say it sucked, it just kind of bored me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, terrible. Terrible. I mean, just to mimic reality TV dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
to have pointless arguments in the middle of the woods, and to try to pretend that that was a real thing going on when, like, I mean, what are you, an idiot? Would they really be still filming through half that shit? No.
Although the female lead, her bit to the camera is still parodied to this day.
Is
So
it?
it did give us
I thought
that.
I thought they stopped that after 5 years.
I still see it now and then.
Really? I've not seen that in a long time. I think the last time I remember it being the first Not Another Scary Movie.
Mhm.
But since then, I mean, that's going back.
I still see references. So I mean, at least it's given us a classic bit of comedy, effectively, even though it was unintentional comedy.
We're right. That's the problem. It's it's seen as comedy because it was bad.
Yeah. And on to something that is anything but boring. This week's movie, which is from 2004, Resident Evil Apocalypse, continuing our Resident Evil series. And of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary. Sponsored by Zach Ward. A B-movie just isn't a B-movie without the mediocre acting of Zach Ward.
And also brought to you by Raccoon City. And I thought Nilbog was a terrible name for a town or a city. Well, let's see if you know what? Let's see if I can actually remember this. It was only 2 days ago that I've seen this,
Uh-huh.
and I actually came out with a pretty high rating.
Uh-huh.
But then I thought about it today, and I was like, I've forgotten about most of this movie already.
Well, I don't know if that really affects the rating. It was fun
All right.
while you watched it.
All right, so let's see if I can do this here. We begin right where the last one left off. In fact, we begin a little bit even before
Mhm.
it ended, just from the outside of the laboratory, what was going on in Raccoon City. And
There's some recycled footage.
yes, there's a lot of recycled footage, of course, because I mean, film costs money, bitches. Although if it's video, no, but I think back then they were probably still using
Yeah,
film.
probably.
Um, so we have the entire city going to shit because the T virus had already been brought out. As they ended the last movie, they said they were going to experiment with it. They were going to go down there and see what caused it in the hive. And the results, of course, in the end of the last movie was the entire town being overran by zombies, and Mila Jovovich playing Charlton Heston, saying "Damn you" when she figured out she was on Earth and the zombies were
Yeah.
taking over Earth. Um, so in the city, things are getting pretty ugly, not because of the zombies necessarily. And the zombies are a factor, a I guess a impetus,
Catalyst.
a catalyst
Actually, kind of
for
an excuse.
for um, for the pandemonium that is breaking loose. However, what is making the problem much worse is the Umbrella Corporation, who decided that this would be the perfect time to run some experiments and see how this whole thing plays out.
Yeah.
So they keep everybody into the city, uh, whether you are infected or not, and they just decide to lock the walls. It's pretty much Escape from New York at this point
Yeah.
with zombies,
Mhm.
and they well, we have the usual cast of characters. We have Alice, who is on the loose who is now genetically modified.
Well, she
Uh,
always was. They're just doing more of it between movies.
well, yeah, they did do something to her in the they reveal at the end that she's evolved
Yeah.
with the virus rather than mutated from it.
Mhm.
That she's accepted the virus, and I guess they gave her such a heavy dose of it that she was immune to it by the end. But it's changed her system.
Mhm.
So, not really much happened plot wise here, did it?
She
Uh,
meets all of the stock characters you would expect.
yeah, she meets all the stock characters, Zach Ward included. All of them have accents, whether they need to or not.
Yeah.
Different accents.
There's a subplot about the daughter of one of the scientists being stuck inside the city, so they have to find her.
Well, right, that's the real MacGuffin.
Yeah.
The daughter of one of the scientists is stuck in the city, and he's calling upon anyone that he can find that's still alive to go and get her. And there are many headshots, and you could really say hilarity ensues, but except
Yeah.
there's one more detail. The Umbrella Corporation, in their experiment also,
Oh yes.
decide to see how, and you gotta love that they'd actually call it this, since he's the big badass of the film, the Nemesis.
Formerly Matt in the first movie, the brother of the woman who was trying to expose
I
Umbrella.
mean, that's a character. I mean, you want to put that up there with a name like Basil Exposition and Nemesis?
And he is straight out of the video game, so you can't blame that on the movie.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I thought I loved it that, it was just, he's the Nemesis.
So that's straight from the game. And they actually did a great job of recreating him. I've looked at some pictures of the video game version, and the movie version looks just like him.
So I'm not familiar with that part of the video game. Is this
It's one of the later games. In fact,
okay?
the
Okay,
game
that
is
would be
actually
why.
called Nemesis.
And yeah, so they set him loose, and of course it's Alice versus Nemesis with whoever gets in the middle in the crossfire. And
Nice little nod to Rain's death.
oh,
She got shot into the button. Nemesis got kicked into the exposed piece of metal.
oh, that's right, that's right. And really, you can say hilarity
Yeah.
ensues. I don't know if we should reveal the fake of what happens with the daughter in the end, because I thought there was an obvious thing that would have happened to the daughter being in a city full of zombies,
Yeah.
and when they get to her,
Mhm.
it's not quite what you're expecting.
Right, yeah. There's a bit of a reveal with regard to the daughter.
Yes.
Given that she is the daughter of the scientist who created the T virus, not really that surprising.
Well, you understand what the T virus actually did have a real purpose
Yes, yes.
other than a military
Mhm.
weapon.
Initially, it was actually, well, she was born with a disability and it was created to cure her originally.
Right.
So she has been treated with the T virus just like Alice. Doesn't have the superpowers. It didn't bond with her in the same way.
And since we've started with her, I was at first thinking she was the Red Queen.
The Red Queen was modeled after her. It was a different actress, but
Okay, so she was supposed to be the Red Queen.
well, it's a different actress who did the image of the Red Queen, but she was modeled after in the lore she was modeled after Angela, the
Okay.
the scientist's daughter.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
So that wasn't a coincidence.
all right, because there was no mention of it anywhere, and I just thought, they shouldn't use like the same accent on the girl,
Mhm.
unless they're really doing it. And yeah, okay,
Yeah.
now it makes sense if she was the Red Queen.
Mhm. And what I really like about this movie, well, one of the many things, of course, this is where the series starts getting really good for me. Right out of the gate, they save you the trouble of watching the first movie.
Well, yeah, there are a lot of sequels that do that.
Alice just explains it all in a voiceover
Yeah.
to camera, which they later explain, which I thought was a nice touch. It's not just this random voiceover to camera. They give a reason for it later in the film. And also it just gets to the point. The first time you see Jill in the police department, you know exactly what kind of movie you're in for
Yes.
in her first scene. And then you see Zach Ward and you know it's gonna be a proper B movie. Now, I thought it was very convenient that they had these giant gates built around the city already. I mean, like vault doors with a turn lock and everything on this city for just such an occasion, I guess.
It's funny because I work in what is pretty much a pre-World War One era fortress,
Mm.
and it's right on, the Chicago River, and there's this little bridge that kind of goes near it, and I just look at it and I think it was some sort of fortress,
Yeah.
It was an attempt to keep something out or in the city at one point, that it was built that way just in case shit hit the fan.
Yeah.
It's definitely always evoked that, and yeah, it's odd that they had. Well, maybe it's not so odd that they had
Well,
an ability to lock the city up.
yes, yes. And given that it's Umbrella, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But who would move into a city with not just gated, but solid steel doors
Well,
on the outskirts and probably surrounded by a wall, apparently, because nobody else could get out any other way?
you get the feeling that it didn't seem as menacing in a time of peace.
Probably.
Like now, it just looks like if you're not thinking about things like me,
Mhm.
you're just like, oh, that's just a big building by a bridge, kind of.
Good point. Good point. And safe to say, everyone who lives in Raccoon City probably works for Umbrella.
Wait, which explains towards the end how the stories turned so quickly,
Yes, yes.
and that speaks truth of a lot. I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely.
anytime there's a big company that hires a lot of people in the area, everyone in the area, regardless of what horrific act that company has pulled off, it's just, oh well, at least we got jobs.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
You kind of shrug your shoulders like, what the fuck?
Now, if Jill's entrance in the film didn't convince you the kind of movie you're in for, Alice's entrance into the church definitely does.
You know what? I was really into this, and then when she came through, it was kind of like, what?
She practically flies through the window of the church on a motorcycle and then proceeds to start the motorcycle up, flip off of it, have it drive forward on two wheels into a liquor, shoot the gas tank on the bike, and have it explode on the liquor.
Now, this would have been the greatest movie ever made
Mhm.
if she started singing Whatever Happened to Saturday Night
Exactly
when
what I
she
was
came
thinking.
Because
And I never thought about that until this viewing. I'd seen the movie like twice before. Never occurred to me when she flies into the church. It hit my head. It just popped into my head.
well,
Rocky.
all I could hear was the audience yelling, "Wow,
Yeah.
she flew through that like a bat out of hell." Enough with the meatloaf references.
Right. Of course, the church scene is where they also introduce most of the stock characters.
Yeah. Well, they all meet at the church.
You have the old guy protecting his infected sister, who is only a brief thing before he gets
Yeah.
killed. The TV reporter who makes it about halfway through the movie.
How, I don't know.
And of course, the cannon fodder. There's the scared guy who's trying to keep everybody out of the church and then panics and runs off and dies in 2 seconds.
We're all gonna die, man.
Yeah, effectively, he was Paxton. Was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, in Aliens. And I was really wondering when the cowboy cop would show up. He's only a few scenes later, and
Oh
he's
yeah.
literally got the hat on.
Right.
And of course, LJ, the hustler, the gangster, effectively played by, is it Mike Epps?
Yes.
The role was initially intended for Snoop Dogg, by the way,
Oh really?
which would have given the movie a very different feel.
Yes, it would have.
I think Mike Epps was a little better in the role.
Yeah. I wish they had given him more to do, honestly, than, be the driver.
He has a fairly sizable role in the next movie.
Oh, okay. Because I mean, the whole thing about him being the driver and the
Yeah.
pilot was just kind of like,
Mhm.
got kind of uncomfortable with this.
Well, he didn't actually fly the plane. He just kind of sat in the role, sat in the seat
Okay, yeah.
for when the evil scientist came in, just to kind of stop him, let him know you're caught. Now, the last Indiana Jones film gets a lot of shit for the nuking the fridge scene, where he hides in the fridge, for the nuclear explosion.
I've still not
I haven't seen
the
it, but I
last
know of
Indiana
that scene.
Jones.
Nuking the fridge has kind
I
of become
can't.
vernacular. This
I felt more strongly about not seeing the Indiana Jones movies than like continuing with the Star Wars series.
Wow. Now, this movie has its own nuke the fridge moment, though. She's running away. Alice is running away from Nemesis,
Yeah.
sees a garbage chute, shoots her way through the wall,
The rocket at the garbage dumpster.
dies through the garbage chute, kind of has a tight squeeze. Nemesis is up, at the chute, and points his rocket launcher down. She kind of rocks this dumpster that she lands in, that is clearly plastic,
Yes.
forward just as the rocket goes off. And apparently it protects her.
Have they had that on Mythbusters yet?
Not yet. I would love to see Mythbusters to take a shot at these movies.
To see what happens if you fire a rocket into the ground right near a dumpster
Yeah.
turned on its side. What would happen to that dumpster? How high would that fly?
And there's a similar moment later in the film where they have to kill some zombie dogs, and they decide to
I
turn on the
love
gas and.
zombie dogs.
Hmm?
I love when they kill the zombie dogs.
Incidentally, the zombie dogs were all real, not CG.
Yeah.
But
Okay, yeah, I can see that in this one.
but to kill the zombie dogs, they decide to turn on the gas and throw a match and a cigarette and yada yada and do the whole fireball thing. Except Alice protects Angela by throwing a flame retardant blanket over the two of them.
It works on explosions too.
Yeah, apparently it doesn't conduct heat at all. It just
No.
keeps everything nice and cool.
Yeah.
And Jill has to be the greatest shot of all time.
They're all great shots.
They're all
so
brilliant shots, but Jill lands a headshot on Peyton, the cop who got infected, with her eyes closed. Because she didn't want to shoot him. Remember, she was turning away,
Right.
trying to resist, and she had her eyes closed. I mean, it was fairly point blank, but still lands a perfect headshot. Oh, and the zombie kids I loved.
Oh yeah.
The reporter, whose name I don't recall, random reporter you need in these kind of movies,
Yeah.
happens into this one classroom in this school where they, of course, find the scientist's daughter. And it's full of kids who have been infected. That was just such a nice, creepy touch that I really wasn't expecting. And then actually something that I'd forgotten since the last time I'd seen the movie. So it was a very nice surprise.
I think one of the most absurd parts of this movie, equaling, if not even worse than holding pilots hostage by the ships in Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Um, them going through the cemetery.
Yeah, yeah. Of course, the dead have to rise straight out of the ground because it's a zombie movie.
But you're in the middle of the zombie apocalypse.
Hmm. And you're
Where do
walking through a
you
cemetery.
not go?
Yeah,
Somebody should have at least had that line of "What the
yeah.
fuck were you doing,
Was
bringing us to
LJ
the
with them at that
cemetery?"
point?
I don't know. I don't.
Because
No, I don't
he would
think
have been the
so.
perfect one to give the line to, but yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think he was with them. Maybe the reporter was with them at that point. Maybe she should have said something, yeah. Because she was kind of a voice of reason for a bit.
Whose bright idea is it to walk through the cemetery during the zombie
Yeah.
apocalypse?
Maybe it was a nod to the game. I don't know. I was reading something about an explanation that the ventilation system was under the ground at that point, so the virus leaked up into the
Well,
graves, and at least there was an explanation for why they would have been turned in their graves.
why bother explaining?
Yeah, true.
Come on. We're not looking for an explanation.
Mhm.
We're not looking for this to make sense.
Right, right. Oh, I forgot a stock character. Of course, the evil scientist has to be German.
Yes. Like I said, everybody had accents.
Yeah.
Even Zach Ward was doing a Russian accent.
And they mentioned this one character, Yuri, who was another military guy. There's these military types who work for Umbrella Corp who get stuck in the middle of the city as well. And one of them is named Yuri, and I wasn't surprised when he had an accent. I didn't catch the name Nikolai until after I'd heard the accent. And yeah, Zach Ward really shouldn't do accents. He's tried it before. It never works well.
I want someone to just dress him like he was in the Christmas Story, like with the
Yeah. Oh
coonskin
God,
cap and
yes, yes,
everything.
yes, yes.
Just be fucking brilliant.
Absolutely. By the way, it was Mila Jovovich's idea. I realized I said that correctly once last week and then went back to the other pronunciation. It was her idea to have the explanation of the heat wave in Raccoon City to explain the scant costumes on her and Jill Valentine.
I really don't get. I mean, her outfit is not that outrageous in this one.
And Jill Valentine's costume is actually straight out of the game.
Right, Jill Valentine's outfit makes absolutely no sense.
Straight out of the game. I mean, they may have modified it a little bit, but it's very close.
But I mean, they could have said she was like working like to bust a prostitution ring
Yeah.
or something like that. I mean, they could have, but instead they're just like, why don't you just dress like a whore and shoot people? And that's it.
Speaking of which, I liked the zombie prostitutes in the movie.
Yes.
LJ gets approached by a couple of zombie prostitutes. It was rather amusing.
I don't know, kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, that's the intention. It was kind of I like this, but I don't like this, which is his
Yeah.
reaction as well.
Well, yeah. Well, no, I'm just talking about like they've got to, okay, they're gonna lure the brother off with this, or I mean, they didn't at least,
Yeah.
so uh, it was all right then, I guess, in the end. But it was kind of like
Oh, by the way, you mentioned the name Nemesis and thought it was a little too on the nose.
yeah.
The film was originally titled Resident Evil Nemesis after the third game in the series.
I think there was a Star Trek Nemesis though, wasn't there?
The title was later changed to Resident Evil Apocalypse after the release and subsequent failure of Star Trek Nemesis. They changed the name of the movie because Star Trek Nemesis bombed.
I think they were just gonna change it
Or they
anyway.
just didn't want to, be compared to
Right.
it or get confusion. But yeah, I got the impression that particularly the failure of Nemesis was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And that was in 2002. It didn't seem that long ago.
That's a shame. Nemesis was a pretty good movie.
I was kind of on it, but I only saw it the one time. If I saw it again, I might like it more. Oh, also, the word biohazard comes up several times in the movie.
Yeah.
This is a reference to the Japanese title of the series. It's not Resident Evil over there, it's Biohazard.
Huh. Well, yeah, the title makes no sense here.
None of the titles make sense in this series.
I
Except
mean,
for, of course, the first movie because it's named after the game, but you have Apocalypse Extinction, which is when the infection gets worse. So I guess that makes kind of sense.
the
So
game was named that because it's in the
the
mansion.
house, yeah. The first game all takes place in a
It was
residence.
a residence of evil,
Yes.
Resident Evil, in the house. So they make a video game off it in the first one, and they use the house for just the beginning and ending it.
Mm.
And nothing's in the house really that's evil.
No, no. It's just a way to get to the place where the zombies are.
It was a way to rip off the name of the movie. The video game.
It was fan service. It was a way to tie it in a
Yeah.
little bit.
Now this, I thought, moved a lot. I mean, I didn't feel like things were shoehorned into it like the last
No,
one.
no.
It's a marked improvement from the last one in that regard. That it's a movie that stands on its own. I didn't need to play those later games
Right, right.
to know that Nemesis was in them or not,
Mhm.
or that Jill was in the game or not.
Well, they just explain him as this is what happened to Matt. He was sent into the Nemesis program and,
Yeah,
infected with a lot of T-virus, and he turned into this big hulking thing.
yeah.
Incidentally, the costume for Nemesis weighed 60 pounds. The guns weighed 65 pounds. The stuntman who was in the costume could only be in it for like 15 minutes at a shot,
Oh, damn.
which is why you don't see a lot of Nemesis. That and it had to be hard to walk in that thing.
Another thing that would have made this the greatest movie of all time would have been if he was wearing a tutu.
Yeah, he was very reminiscent of Toxie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm willing to say that they probably ripped off Toxie with his face, in terms of Nemesis's face at least.
Yeah. But if they, a tutu and a mop, and yeah,
Mhm. Now on to the end of the movie, which of course means Alice is recaptured and has to escape again. Is let escape again. They let her escape again, of course.
I think um, was she really captured or killed?
That is a good point. Okay, so they nuke the city.
Yes.
Thankfully, the helicopter does not outrun the blast.
Hmm.
I was very glad that it didn't, because that would have just been absurd.
Oh yeah, of course, totally. That would have ruined it.
Well, okay, there's a lot in this movie that's absurd. I like to hang on to those little bits of, quasi-realism, like a helicopter really can outrun a nuclear blast.
Hey, if Lando Calrissian can outfly the explosion of the Death
Yeah,
Star,
they didn't make that mistake in this movie. But in the crash, Alice is supposedly killed. Everybody else manages to get away and to reappear. Well, two of them reappear in later films, and then she's recaptured and then revived in this, well, what is effectively a bacta tank.
to me it appeared like they grew her,
They could have grown her again.
and it also appeared like there was two others alongside of
Well,
her.
that was a mirror because you
Oh,
could
was
tell.
that?
Yeah, the perspective changes as the camera zoomed in because I thought that at first as well. And that's a bit of a spoiler for the next one,
Yeah.
so I don't want to go into that too much. But it's possible they regrew her or revived her, what have you. She escapes again, and does a great move with the taser.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She gets tased, she pulls out the electrodes, throws them into the guy who tased her.
Be nice if you could really withstand the
Yeah.
shock of the taser like that.
Mm.
But
Well,
she's now
she's not
even more
human.
genetically modified.
Yeah. Also, she's now psychic, which becomes a thing in the next movie
Oh yeah,
because she looks into the camera and pulls the scanners on the guy monitoring her. There's a guy in a control room somewhere watching her on a camera.
that's how it. Yeah, it very ends with.
She looks into the camera, he gets a nosebleed and passes out, and then she escapes.
Which really, I hate when they give someone that much power at the end of the movie because it's the end of the movie, and then they have to dial it back in the next one.
They don't dial it
Because
back in the next one at all.
really,
They take it away in a later film, but
well, yeah, because how? I mean, like the end of Highlander where he gets the ultimate prize, and then the next one, well, the ultimate prize really wasn't that much.
well, no, she has more power in the next film than she had at the end of this one.
Yeah.
And then in the fourth movie, and they take it away, but there's a good reason why.
Wow, this is like sequels and remakes.
Well, I'm pretty much done with my notes.
I am too.
No sequels and remakes because second verse same as the
No,
first.
no sequels? What are we doing the next 3 weeks?
Like I said last time, four sequels. We'll be getting to all of them. The next one, the sixth and final installment, will be out next year. This is the last I'm going to mention of sequels and remakes. I think we're just going to skip that section for the rest of this series.
So, I mean, if they could only have made this a musical, I think they would have had something. I mean, come on. If she just started singing whatever happened to Saturday night
That part needed some music, yes. I don't know if anything else really did, although a tap number
while
from Nemesis could have been fun.
while shooting creatures,
Yeah.
and singing.
I could see the evil scientist and Nemesis doing putting on the Ritz.
Have they done a Resident Evil musical? It seems like something somebody would have done.
They have to at this point. They haven't, as far as I know, but it sounds like a good idea. And base it entirely on the movies, not the actual games.
Resident Evil musicals. I'm just Googling that
Okay,
right
okay.
now. No, I don't think anyone's done it.
I think I would have heard about it if it had been done. It's
Oh
an
well.
idea that's ripe for the picking. I think it needs to be done.
I would give Nemesis the Michigan J Frog
Oh,
numbers.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole the kick walk forward. Yes,
Yes.
I can see that. Hmm.
I'd give him all Michigan J Frog numbers.
With the top hat. Okay,
Oh yes.
I'm with you now. Yes, yes. Anyway, on the brains.
Anyway, on to brains.
This is where the series starts getting really good for me. This is not the height of the series, but I still, it's one of my favorites. I'm going 4.5.
Oh man, I have been like on the fence of recommending this or not. I mean, it was fun to
Mhm.
watch, but
No one ever
it's
said that these are good movies. Bear that in mind. They're popcorn movies. They're fun.
but it is so forgettable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really like a lot of the gunfights and stuff I've completely forgotten because there really isn't anything new done in any of the gunfights that you haven't seen in
Yeah,
many
fair
other
enough.
movies before. So I'm just gonna go 3.5.
All right. And what have we learned?
We learned that when you deliver a line, you should realize that you're being recorded and that's going to be used for the intro.
Yeah. And I learned that, of course, fire retardant blankets can protect you from a giant fireball.
One to grow on.
All right, so until next week, when we'll be continuing the series with Resident Evil Extinction, my favorite of the series, and also the one directed by Russell Mulcahy.
Oh, wow.
Now that you've seen this one, you fully get the weight of Russell Mulcahy directing one of these movies.
Oh, yeah, it fits.
Oh yeah.
There's a very Highlander.
Mhm.
The last one was more Highlander than this one, I felt. But
But just the excess and ridiculousness of this series really
yeah.
fits Mulcahy very nicely. All right. Until then, go to zombietakeout.com. Check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google Plus, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And of course, if you like the show, spread the word. Give us some word of mouth. We appreciate all of our listeners, but more would be better. You also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review. I think we're up to, yes, Star Trek the Motion Picture right after Buffy. It's official now. You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. And of course, the recommendations list. Getting closer. I have faith for that next week's will end up on the rec list.
If I had just watched this like right before going on, I probably would have recommended it.
Mhm. I did watch it just before the show. Actually, I was slightly late to the show because I had watched it just beforehand.
And then I was like, wait a minute. What just happened?
It's the thing you gotta remember about these movies. No one ever said they were good. They're fun. You can also email us, zombietakeout@gmail.com, or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-TTO1, or for the alphanumerically challenged, 414-368-9861. I always get creeped out when you don't say that.
What?
Of course, always remember that you will always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you
There
are.
you are.
Finish him. I said finish him.
Just be fucking brilliant.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, it was Mila Jovovich's idea. I'll say that again. By the way, it was Mila Jovovich's idea